Welcome to the Gnostic Informant. I'm Jesus, the Logos incarnate, and you are about to attain true Gnosis.
And welcome back to the Gnostic Informant, and you are about to attain true Gnosis. And I'm with Professor Dave from Professor Dave Explains. This is a channel that I've been really enjoying for some time now. And the reason why it's such a dear to me channel is when I was coming out of my religious phase, I entered the phase of, well, there's got to be God somewhere else. Maybe it's just not Christianity. It's got to be something else. And then I came across Thunderbolts project, where these people kind of gave me a little bit of a, how would I phrase this? They sort of filled that hole, the missing hole that I had in me for a little bit of time. And this just sounded like it made sense. It was like these people are talking with these big words, electromagnetic energy, and explaining all these myths that I used to read. And wow, Saturn deposed Jupiter, or Jupiter deposed Saturn. That's in the myths. So they explained it. It must have been the planets or something. So I used to watch this Thunderbolts Project show all the time. I used to love the documentaries and watch them. Dabbled in some of the Gaia stuff and all that. And then I came across in the algorithm, the super actual deity of the algorithm came and bestowed me your channel. And I'm watching through your channel, and I'm just like, holy shit, this is bunk. This dude is straight up dismantling everything. Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah. And so I'm just glad to have you on, man. And
yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I figured we could play a couple clips from the documentary that I used to really love, and it's well done. The music's cool, the art's good, and David Talbot's got a good voice.
Yeah, heavy on the production, light on the facts.
Yeah. So maybe we can just check it out for a couple minutes and then hear your thoughts on it, and then we'll go from there.
The stories begin with the appearance of this celestial formation, heaven, when heaven was close to the earth. The original unity of the sky formed by the Great Conjunction, when a straight line or arrow could pierce the hearts of the gathered powers. The motionless, superior sun, ruling before the present sun. The father of kings, and first in the mythic line of kings. And a dying or displaced god. In later times, the first astronomers identified this overarching ruler of the sky. They claimed it was the planet Saturn.
So I know you're not into like mythology and all this like ancient mythology stuff, but when you see
From an
something like,
academic standpoint, maybe.
yeah, what do you think about something like this?
I mean, it's just gibberish to me. Like I understand that I'm coming at it from a very different perspective, but I mean, I don't even hear a single actual physical claim that is being made. You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
I hear a story. Like I don't hear them saying this particular celestial object that we can see today used to be in this position or in this configuration. And like it's not even making an unsubstantiated claim. It's not even making a claim that I can cohesively discern. You know what I mean? It's just basically reading scripture, and there's a soundtrack to give you this sort of spiritual feel. I just don't even know what there is to talk about. You know?
That's a good point. Yeah. So I just was looking at some of the super chats that are popping up, and first of all, let's say Robert Heron, thank you for the $2 super sticker. They appreciate you. Always good to see you in the chat. Good friend. Also, Jason Sobek, Lord of the Four Corners. You same with you. Good to see you in the chat. Thank you for the super sticker. And then this one is related to what we're talking about. So I wanted to get to the super chats a little early just because this is a good question. And I just looked up the image for this and got it ready. Can you ask Dr. Dave what he thinks of the rock paintings all over the world that look like duck heads? Any explanation? I also get that Dave's not an archaeologist. Yes.
I don't know. I'm not aware of paintings of duck heads, but if they actually exist,
I just pulled them up, and this is what they're talking about.
Oh, this stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's been a minute since I've delved into the whole folklore of the EU stuff. This is stuff I was debunking 1 or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, okay, there's some drawings of stuff, and then Thunderbolts says, "Oh, it kind of looks like something that we're making up," and I don't even know what there is to discuss here. You know what I mean?
Right. And
Things
it's like,
that vaguely look like things.
it's like, yeah, you don't
No.
even know what the dates are. You're just finding
No.
rocks all over the planet. If they look, I mean, this is another thing that I was thinking about recently. And this is after I already became critical of this type of theory or hypothesis, whatever you want to call it. And is that out of how many rock cavings do you come across that don't look like this, that you just discard, and then you make you basically make your own sample size. So it's like, this is all the rock cavings all the rock carvings we have, and they all look like this. But it's like, compared to what else? Like, you can make,
Sure.
I'm sure you can find any design, anything, and find like thousands of them all over the world.
Yeah.
And say, look, there's a giraffe. Somebody drew a giraffe in Saudi Arabia. Somebody also drew a giraffe in China. There's got to be some celestial connection going on here.
You can also call their similarity into question. It's debatable how similar they look. You can also call their similarity to whatever celestial phenomena they're trying to cite into question. They do not look that similar. You can also call their existence into question. How do I know these things even exist? They're just showing me a thing. You know what I mean? This is not science that is published through the proper avenues. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not seeing a picture of a cave etching. You're just showing me a drawing of what you are reporting to me is something that exists. I know that they're liars and con men, so I know I would go as far as to say, how do I even know that this is a thing that exists? You know?
Yeah, and so this is all based off the work of Velikovsky, if I'm not mistaken. Is that what this is?
I know Velikovsky is like the early figurehead, and so he had all of these really wild, all of this wild conjecture about. And forgive me again, this is like a year or two since I've even looked at any of this. So he said something about like Venus coming out of Saturn and settling into its current orbit, and all of these things that very, very blatantly go against like basic orbital mechanics, like basic physics, like the idea that an object could shoot across the solar system and then settle cleanly into a near circular orbit. It just doesn't make any sense, right? So it just kind of defies basic physics. But yeah, man, I'm kind of blanking now on what his main claims were. That like Jupiter used to be a sun, or like something came out of Saturn. I don't know. I mean, it's really, really
I think that's what he's about to
stupid at
say.
face value.
I think that's exactly what he's about to say in this clip that I was playing. Should I let it play?
Okay, sure.
Let it play
Yeah.
a couple minutes.
Refresh my memory.
Remembered as the owner of the cosmic wheel before the god departed for distant realms. The astronomical traditions also name the central star as Venus, the mother goddess, and they name the darker reddish sphere as the planet Mars, the cosmic warrior. In these 3 hours, I intend to demonstrate that the stories of the gods are the stories of what happens to these celestial bodies.
By the way, for someone who's coming out of a religion, this sounds like the greatest thing ever, because it's someone who
Right.
can explain all these myths in one swoop. Like
Mhm.
all the myths explained, boom,
Mhm.
done. It's all just celestial. It's all astrotheology.
Right. Oh, it's all real stuff. It's real science.
Yeah. So it's so for someone like coming out of a religious
Sure. Yeah, I
world, this
see
is
the
great.
allure. Right.
Yeah. Another rock carving.
Mhm.
So this is what he thinks was actually in the sky at that time period. People saw this, what he's claiming.
You're looking at reconstructed images of a formation in the heavens just a few thousand years ago. The configuration evolved through many phases, evoking reverence and awe, a model for kings and kingdoms for thousands of years.
Wait, what?
Great temples and cities, and sacred mountains, all pointed back to the mythic age of gods and wonders. Let the world's first astronomers point the way for us. They knew that what the myths and hymns and prayers called gods were planets and aspects of planets.
You know, another thing that I thought was interesting is that we actually named the planets after gods in the medieval era. Like Jupiter wasn't Jupiter until like I could be wrong about this. I don't know if you know this. Some guy in like Italy was like, "Yeah, that's Jupiter now." Like that didn't happen.
No.
It wasn't the other way around, right?
No, I'm pretty sure that the Greeks and the Romans named the planets. That the names were the same. And I mean, the Romans changed,
Okay.
or I'm pretty sure anyway. I believe so.
No,
Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think I'm thinking of the Latin name for it. That's what
But I mean, it's like, yeah, like we looked at the sky and we noticed objects that were moving differently from the celestial sphere. So we saw these points of light that seemed to be not connected to the way the stars were moving, which obviously they weren't, because they're the planets, they're not the stars. So, but I mean, like the vagueness of all of this is really palpable when you're coming from a point of skepticism. What is this object? Like, what are you even saying that this is? Is that a star? Is it something blocking a star? It looks like an eclipse. What are these weird points of light? What are these beams of light? Why aren't they the same every time? Like, I noticed that they're not even the same. Like, they keep using different images that look different. Like what are you saying? I want to say to the narrator, what are you saying is happening? What is that object? Like,
That's a really good point. They're really vague about what they're saying, and it's all about the music and the art and the feel of the documentary.
It's
to
a
make
story.
you like it. Yeah, it's like,
it's a
oh,
narrative.
this sounds great.
Yeah.
But they're not. You're right. They're not actually saying anything.
They're
It's
not
all
saying
fluff.
anything. They're not making any claims. And so I think that Velikovsky was a little bit different in the sense that he actually made concrete claims. They were absurd, right? I mean, if this is even going off of what Velikovsky said, it's this thing of like something came out of Saturn and it flew over here, and like this really weird stuff that I mean, all of this so blatantly flies in the face of basic physics and basic astronomy and basic planetary science that right, the more bold the assertion you're making, the stronger your evidence must be for it. You must, if you're going to contradict the entirety of multiple scientific fields with a claim, you'd better have
some
mountains of
data.
evidence,
Right.
right? And what I'm hearing is zero evidence. And
Right.
in fact, I'm hearing not even actual concrete claims. It's just kind of like, ooh, there was a myth and then there's a thing and look at this and a picture. And like, it's just, I can't understand. I understand that you're saying that you came at it from a position where you were looking to fill a gap in
Right.
your
I think that's how most people
personal
fall
philosophy. Yeah,
fall into
probably.
this. Yeah.
But barring that personal bias, I can't understand how anybody could listen to this and not immediately just like laugh out loud at what they're saying. I don't even get it. You know.
Well, and another thing is not everyone knows these terms. What the hell's electromagnet? Some guy who says I have a
Sure.
Ph.D. Because a lot of these people, you look at their other videos that aren't documentaries. There's
Yeah.
EU meetings.
Yeah.
Looks like a European Union from a faraway glance. If you don't look
Sure.
into that, you might think it's a European Union meeting.
Yeah. Electric
It's Electric Universe meeting, and that's funny how they do that. And then another thing I know,
a sideshow.
they'll get people with PhDs and be like, the electromagnetic energy in the fields of the quantum, this, that, and third, and they're speaking a language that I have
Yeah.
no idea what it means.
They just get anyone they can get that
Yeah.
will that and I mean most of them are, first of all, most of them are engineers, which are not physicists. But unfortunately you do occasionally get, I mean, the roster is very thin at those things. So you get charlatans like Ben Davidson, who has no qualifications of any kind, who I debunked to smithereens in other content. But you do, unfortunately, you do always get like these one or two physicists who have PhDs in physics who, unfortunately, I think have succumbed to a delusion where I think for a very small subset of science, you have these figures that so desperately wanted to be a revolutionary figure in their field, and they just weren't. And so in order to scratch that itch, they'll fall into pseudoscience and say, oh, I have this revolutionary concept, and and you're censoring it, and it's just too revolutionary, and it goes against the dogma. They
This happens in every field,
in every field, but
study.
especially in astrophysics. This idea that there's the establishment and the mainstream science, and I'm a rogue rebel and I know the truth. It's like, no, you're just wrong. If you had any evidence for what you were saying, it'd be science, right? So astrophysics and physics in particular has undergone multiple paradigm shifts even in the past century. So there's plenty of room for everything to get turned on its head, but you've got to be doing real science, and you've got to have actual evidence to back up your claims, not just conjecture. So but that's the narrative. That's how they ensnare the viewer. They prop up this narrative of mainstream science being dogma, which is a non-starter. There's no such thing as mainstream science. It's science and pseudoscience.
Right.
But that's how they get them in, right? Because what they're saying, this lack of credibility is a big problem, right? All of the other scientists don't know that this is ridiculous, so they have to prop up some kind of conspiracy. They have to prop up some kind of narrative of censorship or dogma in order to seem more credible than they are. So that's the angle, inevitably.
And so the claims they make in this film, I'm going to play a couple more minutes of it, and then we'll move on to the next thing. But is that Saturn used to be the sun?
Okay, that's.
I'm not sure if there's a two-sun model or what, but I know the Saturn was a sun. He was the highest of all the gods. He gets deposed by Jupiter, which that's in Hesiod's myth. But I don't think Hesiod meant planets. I think he's talking about Saturn was ruling the heavenly kingdom, and then Jupiter was. I don't know, whatever. Mm-hmm. So they interpreted that as Saturn must have been the god, or must have been the sun, and then now I don't know, whatever. And they also make this big claim about I don't know if it's a replacement of the theory of gravity or not, but it's some sort of claim that the whole universe is electromagnetic energy.
Yeah, so no, Wal Thornhill, this buffoon that is pictured here, has electric gravity, which is the centerpiece of the first debunk I did of Electric Universe, where he's proposing that gravity is at least in some part an electromagnetic phenomenon, which is completely idiotic, and you can use high school level physics to demonstrate that to be the case.
Wow.
So yeah,
let's see what he has to say.
Yeah.
To exploring what he called the electric universe. His work follows in the traditions of the electrical and plasma science pioneers who showed that electricity plays a major role in space, that galaxies, stars, and planets are formed electrically, that comets with their bright tails move through an electric field of the sun. His electrical interpretation extended to the origin of bizarre landscapes on planets and moons, now explained by the well-tested principles of electrical arcing. In an electric solar system, if two planets or moons approach each other from regions of different potential, electric discharge will occur, producing plasma formations stretching between the approaching bodies.
You want to touch on that, or you want to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, I could talk for an hour about what we just saw. So
Okay, let's do it then.
So there's this claim that there's magical lightning bolts in space, and that's what creates all the craters on these bodies. So let's start with the very obvious. How come we don't see that anywhere? Right? You're making a claim.
Anywhere.
The universe is very large, and we can see all of these astronomical phenomena that are described and discussed in the literature and science. This is not a thing that. Okay, so yeah, why can't we see lightning bolts coming out of planets all over the place?
You know what they do say? Okay, first of all, they say that Zeus's thunderbolt was a phenomenon of what they just said, what you just mentioned. But they also make a claim later on. I'm not even going to play it, but I'll let you continue. But just to show it, if I could find it, they make that Osiris. You know how Osiris has that white hat? You ever seen Osiris's white hat?
I don't recall.
Oh, here it is. I just passed it. Shit. Right there.
Okay.
It looks like the white hat of Osiris, and they say that's why Osiris has a white hat,
Mhm.
because I lost it. I think that's it right there.
Because one shape
There it is,
vaguely resembles another shape.
Crown of Ball, also Osiris in Egypt. It would have the same exact hat as this. Anyone who knows mythology knows this.
Mhm.
So if you notice how the hat's long like that, they say that's because they're copying what they saw in the sky.
So what did they see in the sky? Mars and
know.
Venus were connected by a plasma beam? Like what is that? What does that even mean?
You just said it. That's what they say.
It's just beyond buffoonery. But I mean, but it also, there's a lot that we can talk about in terms of his abject dishonesty, because the comet thing is absolutely the funniest thing, because Wall started getting a big head, and so he started making these claims about comets. And there's all the electric phenomena that are going on with comets, and then we sent a craft and it landed on a comet and we got all kinds of data on the comet. And once he heard that mission was happening, he made all of these claims, right? Because the thing about these guys is they never make falsifiable predictions.
Right.
But he actually did. He actually was like, this is what's going to happen when we land on the comet. And everything he said was so unbelievably wrong, right?
No way.
No, yeah, obviously completely wrong. But he just keeps saying it. He keeps saying it anyway, right? Because he knows that the people who watch this stuff, like, they're not going to go read the article. They're not going to like look into.
They just want to see his body, how they want to see how calm and how direct he is about his response.
And in fact, I still get people commenting on my videos and go like, "Oh yeah, you still think comets are dirty ice balls?" And it's like, yeah, we landed on one. We know the composition. Do you want to go read the literature? Like, you're just taking his word for it, and he's lying. He's just flat out lying about comets. Like, I just I don't know how else to put it to you. Like, if you want to look into what actually happened, it's all available to you freely on the internet. Just take the initiative and don't just take his word for it. Go look into it. You're kind of like, I'd kind of left this all behind, but this is almost inspiring me to go back and do another couple on Wall in particular, because the comet thing just makes me laugh so hard. It just demonstrates the complete lack of intellectual honesty or integrity that the followers have. That they're like, all the science is there. Go look at it. Right, you're just believing what he said, and he's lying. So I don't know what else to do here. But to get back to what we're talking about, like this, like, okay, this is an image that they showed. Right, they're not explaining what's going on geometrically. You've got Earth there, you've got Mars there, you've got Venus there. Where's the sun? Are you saying that Venus was once had a greater orbital radius than Mars? That Venus was on the other side of Mars? Is this that thing where they think Venus came out of Saturn? Right? How did a planet form inside of another planet? How does a star turn into a planet? How does a star go from being a star into being a planet? Like, none of these things make even the tiniest ounce of sense in the context of the fields of astronomy and astrophysics and planetary science. It's just gibberish to anyone who knows about how stars form and how planets form and all these things. It's just complete insanity. And so it can be rejected outright, but it should also be, people should also be skeptical of the fact that they make these claims and they don't even bother attempting to go, this is how this could happen, or this is why this is feasible. This is explained by such and such data. It's just, no, some dudes saw something in the sky and they made a drawing, we think. I don't even buy it. I think they make up the drawings too. I don't even think those are real. So it's just, it's a mess. There's nothing here to even dig into.
It is kind of funny that because once I started watching your videos and how I saw you dismantle it, and you were demonstrating why without a doubt, like unless you're just not listening to what you're saying, unless I'm just going to plug my ears and go like this,
which
that's
many
the
do.
only way to not understand that this is wrong.
Yeah,
and I get that, and the people who reject what you're saying or what we're saying, their only argument is no, it sounds dumb. I don't get it.
Yeah, for the most part. I would say that's 75-80% of the people. I'd say some percentage actually makes some attempt to try to, because the thing is, like some of them do try to like put forward what they want to be perceived as actual models of the universe. So they'll talk about, the galaxy's electromagnetic field, and like they'll try to say things that could be perceived as science. And a lot of people are really good at like memorizing that script and regurgitating it.
Right.
But,
no, that's a good point.
It doesn't hold up to scrutiny. So, but you're right. 80% don't even do that. They just go, "Nuh-uh,
I just don't like how it sounds. No, I don't like it. This sounds better."
Right. So they can be dismissed, but then the people who actually think that they're talking about science, we need to dig into that and why it's not actually science.
Right.
So
let's get to a couple super chats and then we'll go to the flat earth thing that I was this video that you're in, it's on your channel actually, about the flat earth, that you and Dave, Flat Earth Dave.
Yeah.
Oh my god, dude, it's so funny. But before we get to that, we'll go to some super chats. Let's see. Robert Herring says emergent space/time, gravity, emergent entropy. Good question.
Entropy. I don't know what the word emergent means in the context of those two things. Yeah,
I have no idea what that means. Robert, if you're in the chat, my friend, if you want to ask us what you're asking,
like if entropy and space-time are emergent properties of the universe,
let's say
maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that's pretty heady. I think a physicist would be better equipped to discuss that than me.
Yeah. All right. And the next super chat, Samantha Pedigree. Thank you for the super chat. How does water not move in lakes? Asking for my flat earth friend.
It does definitely move. All of the water molecules are in constant motion. That's what a liquid is.
Is that even a flat earth top thing?
I don't know. That's
one I never heard yet.
I haven't either. I think probably what they maybe meant are like, why are there not tides in lakes? Which there are. They're just very small because it's a very small body of water. Or how are lakes flat? Which they aren't.
Like a cup of water that's
small.
Still. It's such a small body of water that it can stay still.
Right, but the water molecules are not still. They're in constant motion. That's what a liquid is. But
there's the answer then.
Right? The problem is lakes are a demonstration of an inability to grasp scale. The smaller an object is, right? The smaller a body of water is, the less apparent the curvature can possibly be.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That I think they use a cup of water to say where's the ocean can't have curvature either. Well, yes, it can. The ocean is not a solid object. It's a bunch of molecules, and all of the molecules are being pulled towards the center of the Earth, and that vector changes depending on where you are. Wherever you are, you're being pulled towards the center of the Earth. So the oceans conform to the curvature of the Earth just like the land does. It's not a problem. But to be honest, I cannot even discern what this question is trying to ask.
I think for you, it sounds like these are such like dumb questions, but like
insanely dumb.
People are asking these type of things and I think you're right. I think it's the inability to understand the scope of how big the ocean is compared to a small lake or, a glass of water or something like that.
And forces and vectors and just the concept of, where forces are pointing and, it's the same as, people in Australia are upside down. No, they're not. It's a sphere. Every down is to the center of the earth. Like it's so like I understood this when I was 5. Like, why can't you understand this? Down is to the center of the earth. Nobody's upside down. Down is to the
Right.
center of the earth. They're upside down relative to us. We're upside down relative to them. Who cares? That's how shapes work. It's a sphere.
Right.
It's a ball. There's no spheres don't have bottoms. Right. The funny thing is that they think that things fall off the bottom of the sphere because they have gravity on Earth so ingrained in them that things go down because they go down to the center of the Earth. So they're trying to apply the logic of falling towards the center of the Earth to a zoomed out perspective of the entire Earth as though there is a down in space.
Right.
There's no down in space. There's no what do they think is making it fall off there? Just rotate it the other way. Now it's which way is down now, right? It's all
that is like second grade. I mean,
it's so like I just can't believe it that people
that's
can't
crazy.
wrap their heads around this.
Yeah, I had a friend who's a Muslim who was in the flat Earth stuff, and he could not understand the moon phases. Like he did not understand why. Like you can explain it to him, you can show him videos, you can show him. He just did not understand. He thinks that the moon was its own source of light and that it's some sort of hologram in the sky, and just
a source of light with shadows on it. That makes perfect sense.
Exactly. I was like, dude, what? I don't know.
And it's okay. Like it's okay.
Make fun of him too much, but you know,
I know that there's people out there who don't really know what causes the lunar phases, and they think it's the shadow of the Earth on the moon and things like that. And like that's okay. Ignorance is okay. I would never. I would never mock somebody for not knowing something, even something that is fairly trivial. But the thing is that most people who don't know what the lunar phases are, if you say to them, "Oh no, it's not shadows. It's just you're seeing the side of the moon that's illuminated, right? The sun can illuminate half of the moon because it's a sphere, and whatever it illuminates, we can see that. So as it goes around the Earth, there are times where we can see more of it. There's times when we can see less of it. And then if that person goes, oh, okay, that makes sense. Then we're like, great, we're all good. You learned a thing today and it's a great day. The thing that I can't handle is people who assert their profound ignorance over basic logic and science. It's like, no, the lunar phases don't make sense. Yes, they do. Actually, they make perfect sense. And we understood this thousands of years ago. You're just being deliberately obtuse. So stop doing that. You're ridiculous. You're being a child,
Yeah, it really, and that's the thing. It's like you said, it's okay to not know things, especially things that are really, really basic. Like not everybody has the same upbringing. Not everybody has the same education.
It happens.
But when the difference is when somebody who doesn't know things says they know things and has to be right.
It's like me going to the auto mechanic and I know zero things about cars and I go, no, you're doing all this wrong. Right. It's actually the carburetor that starts or I just make up words and I'm just, it's like
the flux capacitor's got to
be I don't know how cars work. You do, you fix it. I'm not going to tell you your business.
Right. So now we have Derek from Myth Vision. Thank you, Derek. What's going on, buddy? How did you summon the atheist god, Dave? Rock on, Neil. He is a beast with bunk science. Yes, that is true. Thanks for that super chat. Let's see. I'm looking to see if the member had any questions because the members do get front row seats. Aaron Adair, who also, by the way, you and him were like my two pillars of debunking the EU stuff because he wrote a lot about this. I've had him on my channel a couple times to talk about this. He's actually coming on tomorrow to sort of also finish off what he was saying before. And Aaron's great. He's super
cool.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. He says the Greeks didn't name the planets after the gods we know until Plato's time. Older names very different.
Okay.
Oh, cool. Yeah, he's
but nevertheless, the ancient Greeks. But I was pretty sure that the Romans, and the Roman names are the ones we use still today.
Right.
Were what they actually called the planets, I believe.
Yeah, because Jupiter is the Latin version of Zeus.
That's right.
Mercury is the Latin version of Hermes. So
Hermes, Aries,
a lot of
Mars,
sense
and Kronos and Saturn. I think.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And actually, that is it for now for Super Chat. So I want to get to this video, and I just want to play a couple of minutes of this. This is just hilarious. By the way, the two guys on top, their reactions are priceless.
Yeah,
especially the guy in the top left. This guy,
he's digging it.
You see something that'll tell you its shape. So when I look at this, are these spheres?
Oh.
Are these spheres, Dave? Are these spheres?
Yeah, no, I've seen this little trick, and I know the
It's not a
third one
little
from the
trick.
left is flat.
It's
Now,
showing you
see, here's
the
the
third one
problem.
from the left is flat. Dave, let me give me a second, then you can go.
No, because I've seen you do this, because I watched 2 of your videos, and you say the same crap in every single one.
Right.
I
But
know what
I'm
these
showing
are.
you
I know
is
what these
you
shapes
don't-
these are.
So how do you know what shape the moon is? How do
Okay,
you know
so
that the moon is even a physical object?
is
Because
here-
during a new moon, no one
Yeah,
sees
I
the
get
moon
it.
in the sky.
I know your talking points. So this works because that's not moving. The things in the sky move. So if you take the third one from the left, which I know is flat, and you move it around, it's going to start to change shape, right? If the moon was a flat
Look at his
disc,
face.
I don't even
He's
know
just
if that's one of
nodding
your
his head.
talking points or not.
Sure.
As it passed over you, it would change shape. It would
I don't think the
distort.
moon is a flat disk at all.
Okay, so it doesn't matter though. That's why what you're saying is stupid, because these objects do not move. Now, the other problem is it's not just about shape, it's about other things like composition. Do you know what spectroscopy is?
Yeah, spectroscopy is you can measure gases, but it has to be in a container. Where's the container?
No. Stop. We're looking at light. We're looking at light. And
This is
we
a
are
classic
understanding
video, dude. This really
about the
is.
materials, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're understanding the composition of things based on light. So when you start talking about gases, you show me immediately that you don't even know what spectroscopy is. So you do not know the ways in which we figure out things about celestial objects. You literally don't even know the definitions of the words that represent the techniques that we use. So why are you even talking about it?
So my question is, spectroscopy needs to be in a container. Otherwise, you don't know what you're looking
Spectroscopy needs to be in a container. The study
be-
of how light interacts with matter needs to be in a container. What does that mean?
Otherwise, when you're looking at the moon, you don't know what gases you're seeing in between us and the moon.
Gases? The moon is solid. The moon is a solid object.
How do you know that the moon is solid? How come you can't see it during a new moon?
Why can't you see it during a new moon?
Yeah.
Because do you understand how vision works?
Well,
right? In a new moon, what's happening in a new moon? The
There's no
light from
light.
the sun is illuminating the side of away from us.
So
Right? Light illuminates the things that it hits. So a new moon is when the side that the sun is illuminating.
You're just talking about that.
I should have also pointed out that you totally can see a new moon with special cameras and stuff. There's totally images of the new moon.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
No, there are. I should have pointed that out, but it stands that was. I think spectroscopy needs to be in a container is my favorite sentence that's anyone has ever said. It's just so profoundly stupid.
I think I think it's coming up in it's like 14 minutes in where he says Aristophanes, which is not the name of the person. He's naming a Greek playwright.
Right, he keeps
from
getting the
Athens.
name wrong. I mean, whatever.
You correct him in the name, and then he says it again like 2 minutes later.
Yeah, I mean that's the least of his problems.
Right.
But yeah, it is funny.
You should know what you're talking. You should know the names. If you're going to come
ideally,
at this thing.
I mean, it's more concerning that his logic is terrible. But sure,
Right.
yeah, I think pretty much everything he has ever said is ridiculous. So
let's just play a couple minutes more of it, and we'll get to. I think there's a couple more super chats.
Photons, you can draw paths from the edge of the sun going in one direction, the edge of the sun going in the other direction. You're trying to oversimplify things. You're trying to go, oh, it's crepuscular, it's all parallel, and so then this time it works for my talking point, and then another time it doesn't work for my talking point.
My point is Aristophanes' story doesn't make any sense with a distant sun orbiting.
This is after you corrected him on the name.
If you just say it doesn't
ignore
make
the
sense
second
and
time,
stop
you just
talking,
think-
I guess.
How does a distant sun orbit a geocentric Earth when the Earth is tiny and the sun is gigantic?
Well, it
work
doesn't.
in your
Long
model.
story short, it doesn't. But
So
he was
why-
an ancient Greek, and he didn't know heliocentrism. They didn't know when Newton developed Newton's law of universal gravitation. He didn't know why massive objects attract one another, right? He just said, "This is what happens," and I have this equation, and we use Newton's equations to do all these incredible calculations that predict the motion of objects on Earth and in space. He didn't know what gravity was. Einstein gave a better explanation. The curvature of space-time are warped around massive objects.
You know what I noticed is that he's disregarding all of these great breakthrough thinkers like Einstein and Newton and people before that, and he's just saying no, they're all wrong because it doesn't make sense because I said so.
Yeah, that's what makes flat Earth the absolute bottom of the barrel, because they're denying literally the entire edifice of science. It's not like anti-vaxxers or, like Electric Universe only denies physics. Well, EU's pretty bad actually, but it only denies physics. Flat Earth denies all of astronomy, all of geology, all of physics. Like, it's unbelievably insane. you know.
There's a point in here, I can't remember where it is, but I think that's where it was, where he says, you don't know these people, you never met them before. And then you go, they wrote books. We can read them.
Mhm.
Like, and it was such a good point, because it's like he's trying to make a point, like, well, you weren't there, so how do you know? How do you know everything you've been taught isn't wrong? It's
Yeah,
like, well, what you're saying is every single book that's ever been written was basically a collusion by some like secret government that's like just trying to make everybody,
Yeah.
not know the truth for what reason?
Yeah, either that or he's trying to liken science to the utterances of a prophet, right? Like, as Einstein is like Jesus, or so, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not how science works. It's not some guy said something, right? So humans, individual humans, produce advancements in science. We're humans. That's how humanity works. But they formulate models, and then we use those models to make predictions and advance science even further. So the validity of science is not just about, oh, I trust that one guy. That's not how science works, right? We have used general relativity and special relativity to make predictions about phenomena that we can observe that end up corroborating the theory, right? We make predictions that end up being accurate to astounding orders of magnitude. So Einstein was right. He's been dead for a long time, and every day we see how right he was by looking at what stars are doing and looking at what planets are doing. Just looking at the cosmos and observing the motion of objects, we can see that he was right.
Right.
And has nothing to do with, if Einstein didn't come up with relativity, somebody else would have. It's just science is being advanced incrementally, slowly, and there's always individual figures who make the greatest contribution, but it doesn't rest on their shoulders alone, right? You can go to any astrophysics department at any university, and they will explain to you, without using Einstein's name, why general relativity is correct, right? It has nothing to do with that Einstein was Einstein, right?
Right. And it's not like you're just submitting to, like, authority.
No.
It's not like a fallacy. It's what you're doing is, we're standing on the backs of all this information that's been given to us over time, and people are building off the people before them, and then you're building off those people.
Correct.
And if it was wrong, if there would be papers and there would be people challenging these ideas, there would be debates, it would be multiple different experts coming from different angles with different. It's not just going to be some guy on YouTube that's going to crack the code and figure out it's all been wrong the whole time. It's not how it works.
No, and in fact, pillars of science are overturned at times.
Yeah, that's why. Then that's the point I was getting at. Is like, there are going to be people who are going to break through and say this is wrong, this is why.
Yeah, but it's within
not
the field. It's not some
not just
clown,
gonna be some guy,
some high school dropout with a backwards hat.
right? And they'll point to Einstein and be like, "Well, what about Einstein? Wasn't he a dropout or something like that?"
No, he went through the formal institution. He did everything. They like to use that patent clerk example. Like, yeah, he had a boring job as a patent clerk, but that doesn't mean he didn't also go through a formal education. He did.
Exactly.
So,
and he was working off the science that was given to him.
And guess what? Like, it's fine. Like, you like, the probability is unbelievably slim, but I'll listen to some high school dropout talk about physics. I'll give you a chance, right? Go ahead to show me what you got. And who knows, right? If you've got something, then you've got something. But they never ever do. They just have complete and utter nonsense that contradicts the most basic scientific facts that are demonstrable in a trivial manner.
You know what I noticed, that the big common denominator is from flat earthers is God, some sort of religious belief. Like, it always rests on that.
Not always.
Maybe not always, but if you keep picking apart, keep picking apart where they're getting at. Why is it that the Earth is flat? Why is it that everything revolves around the Earth? Why is it that there's a light? Well, because there's the only reason why it makes sense is because God put it there. And it's been my experience, not like you said, not everybody, but it's been my experience when I talk to people in these areas. It's
Yeah.
usually somebody who's following some sort of religious or spiritual path.
Well, if you're denying the naturalistic explanation of literally everything in the universe, then inevitably you're going to land on a god, right?
Right.
But to be honest, not all of them use a theological approach. Many of
True.
them rely on solely on conspiracy.
Yeah.
And so Weiss is an example. I don't know if he's religious or not. He probably is, but he tries his darndest not to talk
Not to
about that
bring
because
that
he
up.
wants to appear empirical. But his whole thing is like beyond the ice wall, there's more land and there's like secret resources. And they're going to go get all the stuff from the on the secret continents. You know,
Right.
it's just so unbelievably stupid.
Kesha White, thank you for the super chat. Who is the most frustrating person you've ever debated?
Well, technically, I've only ever had 3 debates, and that was Kent Hovind and Jesse Lee Peterson and Weiss. And I would say Weiss was the least frustrating because I just completely annihilated and dominated him the entire time. I'd say Kent and Jesse were both insane. I'd say Kent was the most frustrating. Just because that was my first debate ever, and I was not prepared for the level of intellectual dishonesty. I knew that he was a liar, but I didn't know how he comported himself in interactions. I should have watched some debates because, like, I watched a couple videos where he said a bunch of stuff, and I go, "Oh, that's what he says. Okay, I know how to counter all that." But I wasn't prepared for his slimy tactics. In the interaction.
It was on full display when you debated him.
It was insane.
He
I
was
was
really screwing
flabbergasted.
around.
Yeah, I
But
was
you,
flabbergasted.
but you obviously exposed him pretty bad. Like that was one of his worst. Like coming from, if you're on his side, if you're religious or you're Christian and you're watching that debate, you probably would have said, "Wow, that looked horrible for Kent Hovind." That's how bad it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I wasn't quite able to disarm all of his talking points as well as I wanted to in real time, just because I was getting aggravated, and that is his technique to aggravate the other person. But I was also very clearly aggravating him by appropriately countering a good amount of what he was saying, and that's why he had to up the ante and become even more irritating. And so he was acting them as irritating as he ever has with the SpongeBob and all this stuff. And I think some people on his side kind of noticed that and are like, wow, Kent's really being an idiot right here.
Right.
But certainly some proportion of them are just like, go Kent, you know?
Yeah, of course. It's always going to be like that. That's
Yeah,
how it is.
I still get people going. I still get tons of comments that are like, "Oh, Dave believes he came from a strawberry," and it's like, "Wow, you did not understand at all what was being discussed in that section." Having a common ancestor does not equal I came from. But
Right. That's such a basic thing that people
Yeah.
can't get. And I think people like Kent Hovind know that, but don't
Yeah.
care. They just
Oh,
ignore
of
it.
course, he's had evolutionary biology taught to him countless times. He
Right.
understands it. But no, I'm not going to pretend that I knocked that one out of the park the way I did with Weiss. I think the way that I approached the one with Weiss is based on learning what I did from interacting with Kent. That if you're talking to a charlatan, if you're talking to a gish galloping con man, there's no politeness. There's no coming at it from equal ground. No, this is somebody that needs to be body slammed and have their throat ripped out for all to see. And I'm still getting criticism about the Weiss thing and how much of a jerk I was. And fine, everybody can have their own opinion, but I'm sorry. Like there's no politeness with these people.
I agree.
The amount of dodging that Weiss did in there, I held his feet to the fire way more than I did for Kent. And even then he was jumping around all over the place to the point where he flat out admitted, I don't have anything to counter what you're saying. Can we please change the topic? I got him to actually say that.
And not only that, for people who criticize you for being rude, right off the bat, the way he even acknowledged you was completely rude. He was like, he didn't even say hello to you yet, and was like, "Yeah, this guy, what he does, he takes you out of character, something like that." He said something along the lines, he takes you out of context right off the bat. Oh,
Yeah.
nice to meet you too. Like,
Yeah.
you expect me to be nice to you now? Like, you know?
No, this will be honestly, I can't really figure out why he agreed to do it. Like he had to on some level know what was going to happen. But I guess I don't have that. I only have those 2 debates up, so I guess maybe he didn't know that I was going to be capable of that. But it's just wow. Like
The Jesse Pearson one was like a Tim and Eric video.
I know.
It
It's
was
just
just like, what is this
they're
guy
completely-
talking about? This
he
is
is like a
nonsense.
Tim and Eric character. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
absolutely
he's
right.
definitely a Tim and Eric character. He would make a lot of money if they ever got hooked up with those guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pastor Sir Spence, do you think the Greeks were more advanced with Epicurus than Middle Age Christian Middle Ages?
Like medically, scientifically, it's hard to say. I'm not a historian, and I think there's a lot of criticism out there where people maybe unjustly portray the Middle Ages as a little bit more backwards than it was. I'm not quite enough. Like, I'm not a historian, so it's hard for me to comment on exactly what was known by which societies at any given time. But I certainly think that they were not more advanced than the Greeks. The Greeks were this unbelievable paradigm shift towards empiricism and rationality that was more or less stifled. I think we did not really progress beyond that until the Renaissance.
I agree.
Until at least like Galileo, I'd say, was the next paradigm shift in scientific thought after the ancient Greeks. Like, it's just so insane. But that's why I adore ancient Greek civilization. If I could go back in time to any place, that's where I'd go. I think I just want to wear a toga and drink wine and talk about the stars.
Right. There's
Yeah.
atomism. Atomism was already a thing back then with
Sure.
Epicurus and Democritus.
Yeah, not based on anything empirical, of course, but
Sure.
a philosophical conjecture. But definitely interesting that they were able to wrap their heads around that kind of a concept.
Yeah, and just to add to what you said, Richard Carrier, who he's got his Ph.D. in history, but he also has written about Roman science. He argues that the Greeks were moving faster than the middle, not more advanced. I don't think you can go backwards, because once you establish certain things in science and the field of knowledge, it's there.
If you burn books, it ain't there anymore.
That's a good point too, though.
Remember when there was only books and that people used to burn books?
Yeah, that's a good
They
point.
used to burn entire libraries. There's so much stuff that we probably lost, and I'm sure we figured out later, but that's set.
But
science
but
behind you.
that's basically what Carrier was saying, was that there probably would have been more advancement if they could have went down that path rather than the Christian path.
Yeah, we could have been at our current level of advancement 500 years ago.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, it's so hard to wrap your head around, but
yeah, that's true. Scott Daniel, thank you for the super chat. Can you explain how paradigms shift in terms of Thomas Kuhn? Cliff Notes version. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, the structure of scientific revolutions. I did read this in college, which was about 17 years ago. So
Nice.
I know who Kuhn is. I mean, I think it unfortunately, no, I can't really give the Cliff Notes version. It's too long. I don't really remember. I should make content on that, though. I should do some philosophy of science content. But I mean, I think that the quantum revolution is a perfect example in terms of overturning a previous paradigm. I think that what some people don't understand, and that what Kuhn, if I remember correctly, probably showed, is that previous paradigms are not discarded. They're not thrown in the trash. They're just relegated to smaller scales. So with relativity and with quantum mechanics and all of these advancements in modern physics, it's not that classical physics is discarded. We can still very readily use all of Newton's equations to calculate, the motion of even celestial objects, right? Not just kinematic stuff on Earth, but also, the orbits, Kepler's laws. All of that is Newtonian. It's a Newtonian paradigm, and it works just fine. But we just figured out that once you look at stuff that's smaller than an atom and going close to or going close to the speed of light, that stuff doesn't work anymore. We got to use another model. But so hopefully that a little bit answers that question. I gotta brush up on my Kuhn.
Yeah, I think that was a good answer.
Mhm.
But speaking of quantum, you did some work on this quantum mysticism stuff that you see on like Gaia, where they talk about like chakras and all this. It's sort of the same sort of language that we talked about earlier with the astrotheology people, but they do it in a quantum mechanics sense, where they take all these big words that most people don't know, and they apply it to like chakras and Buddhism and whatever. What's some of the nuttiest stuff that you came across when you were looking into this stuff?
The nuttiest stuff. I mean, there's so many flavors. I mean, in the medical realm, it's all about the Reiki and the chakras and that kind of stuff. Then there's people like Deepak Chopra, who was, one of the forefathers of this, in the 80s. I mean, there's just so much. What it is the reason it is popular now. Well, obviously because people make money off of it, but the reason why it is a popular narrative is that it scratches an itch for those who want to believe in magic but want to still feign compatibility with science. So there are people who are just outright science deniers and just turn their back on all of science. But a lot of people are more rational than that, and they understand that obviously science has something to it because technology exists, right? How can science be wrong? We do things with science, right? What is this? What is this if science isn't real, right? How are we doing this? So obviously there's something to science, but some people still want to believe in magic. So the way to believe in magic but still believe in science is to pretend that the magic is science, right? To try to incorporate it, try to shove it into the panoply of science. And that's what the quantum mystics do. They say all of this magic and all of these incredible powers and psychics and blah, 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 blah is real because quantum physics. And then it's just a game of word salad to try to justify that assertion.
And they'll do stuff like they'll get people by saying stuff like, "Oh, have you ever heard of quantum entanglement? It's when
Right.
two particles in space-time are connected just by like telepathically through like some sort of quantum Bluetooth system that they can just like make the craziest claims that don't even make sense at all."
So that one, I mean, that is one, maybe the least crazy claim that they make, because quantum entanglement is something that physicists study. I'm pretty sure the jury is still out on non-locality. I don't think that we have determined definitively that non-locality is a thing. So it is science, but the thing is, they point to like the worst ones don't even point to real science. They just make up words. They just make up word salad. But the best ones point to real science. But then they just try to loop in their claims as though they are derived from that science, and they aren't, right? So they can reference non-locality or quantum entanglement, which is something that you could do an experiment about, and then they say, therefore, auras, or therefore astral projection, or therefore this other completely unsubstantiated tripe. And that's the best of them. That's the smart ones that know how to make it, that are the best at making it look like real science. They actually reference real science.
Yeah. And I've noticed that people like Deepak Chopra are echoed by other people. Like, for example, I don't know if you've seen the video or somebody put together a montage of Jordan Peterson's sayings on several podcasts, puts them together in one spot and shows how he was literally saying word for word stuff that Deepak Chopra was saying in other places.
Oh,
so
really?
I didn't know that. A script that I don't know if I don't know if they did it on purpose or if he was just remembering something that he heard from Deepak and he's regurgitating in his own words. Because it wasn't word for word exactly the same, but it was like the sequence was still there.
Sure.
They were still saying the same thing.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I wouldn't hold that against him too. And Jordan's not a quantum mystic. I mean, I think some of what he says is questionable, and I think some of what he says is really intelligent. But Deepak is a charlatan, for sure.
For sure.
But yeah, I wouldn't hold it against somebody for maybe even necessarily hearing somebody make a talking point and agreeing with it and saying it again in roughly their own words or even in the other person's words. I don't know, because ideas are ideas, but
right.
Deepak is, man, this guy, he's really good. He's really good. He's a really good mystic. He knows how to make money. And in fact, he's worth like $150 million.
People gravitate to him. Certain people just have a personality and they become, charismatic, and he's just one of those people.
Yeah, he exudes the essence of the calm Indian guru.
Right. Exactly.
And
and it works. Aaron Adair, who's another science nerd, he says, favorite force of nature. And yes, there is a correct answer.
There is a correct answer. I don't know. Strong nuclear force.
Let's see what he says. What do you say to that, Aaron? Strong nuclear force. So I don't even know what that. I mean, would gravity be an answer to that?
Sure. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, some would argue that it isn't because it's not a true force, but I still think you've got the four fundamental forces. It's an apparent force in the context of general relativity, but yeah.
Nice. What are those forces, real quick?
Strong nuclear, weak nuclear, electromagnetism, gravity.
Wow. Interesting. I didn't know that. I'm not a science guy at all, but I like to watch the videos. I like to watch your videos. I like to watch just like documentaries and stuff like that. But yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there, which I think is why people like you are important in the discussion. Because how do you draw the line between people having a right to, free expression, free art, but then all of a sudden they get into the realm of they're trying to make arguments that are like borderline misinformation? Like where does that line get drawn between I'm just being creative and just throwing out ideas and now I'm misinforming the public, right?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and it's a very hard question to answer because and you have to talk about this when you have platforms like Twitter and YouTube, which have tremendous reach, and people whine about free speech, and they don't really know what that means. I think free speech just means you can't be put in jail for things that you say,
Right.
and I agree that charlatans maybe should not necessarily be put in jail for willingly deceiving the public with words, but those platforms, which are privately owned, have a duty to police the platform. And so while I think YouTube has taken an interesting approach in terms of deprioritizing deliberately misleading content in the algorithm rather than just outright deleting it from the platform. But I don't know. It's very hard, but I do think that there need to be more repercussions. These quantum mystics and these cranks that make very clear claims about physical reality and make claims about the medical value of some product or technique. They're lying. They're deliberately fleecing the public, and that needs to be regulated. There needs to be repercussions for that.
I agree.
Fines at the very least. Something that makes it not economically viable to lie to people. We don't have to put them in jail. We just have to stop them from doing that.
Yeah, because like you said, even just calling them out on their BS is not enough, because that's not going to change. That might give them more followers, if anything. Look at this rebel. Look at this. Oh, he's awesome. He's going against the grain. He's a real rebel. But like you said, when you actually make it so it's incentivizing people not to want to actually disinform the public, maybe it's economic, maybe it's monetization, that would probably be more effective. I mean,
yeah, but in the meantime, with no legal recourse, I would like to encourage other people to do as I'm doing and to aggressively expose and neutralize the misinformation, not only to show potential followers or people on the fence or even people who are deep into it how it is objectively false, but also to arm other skeptics with the correct talking points and the correct arguments to on their own debunk this stuff in their own personal spheres. So I would love it if somebody watches my content, and then if they know a creationist, or they know an electric universe person or a quantum mystic or any of that stuff in their own personal lives, they can use the things that I'm saying and try to get through to that person. Because I know that a more personal interaction, there's a higher probability of getting through to that person, which a YouTube video is just not going to do. But
yeah, that's a good point. It has to be done on every level, even just the everyday Joes that are hanging out with your buddy watching documentaries. That's where the true changing of minds happens, right?
Yeah. By the way, I did notice the other super chat pop up that electromagnetism is supposed to be the correct answer.
Yeah.
I think I didn't say that because we just got done talking about how stupid electric universe is.
I thought that too. I was exactly thinking that.
But my other response would be, without the strong nuclear force, there are no atoms. So we need atoms to do chemistry. So that's another way of looking at it.
That's a fair answer right there. I mean, you can't argue against that. But yeah, this has been fun. I'm glad to have you on. I definitely want to do this again sometime.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you for this. And like I always say at the end, you have just attained true gnosis.
You have just attained true gnosis. The demiurge has no power over you.